Hi everyone, this is Neil with Portal to Ascension. We're at this Portal to Ascension conference. Welcome back. And we are doing interviews with a lot of the presenters here. We are showcasing their information and awareness that they are putting out there in the world, and really attempting to convey a message of hope, wisdom, and enlightenment through many different avenues, whether it's UFOs, advanced technology, free energy devices, and how we can be more sustainable to this planet, or our ancient history. And the presenters here are really truly dynamic and groundbreaking and awe-inspiring. And I'm blessed and honored to have with me right now John D'Souza, who is one of the presenters here, and he is known as the X-Man. That he used to be an FBI agent that was in charge of the paranormal files, and through that awareness really delved into everything that we're discussing here today. So we're going to talk to John and really delve into what you're doing. Hi John, how you doing, brother?
Thanks, Neil. I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to be here at Portal to Ascension. It's been a great experience, wonderful experience, and the speakers and everybody that's been talking has been amazing, and I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. I've been following you for a while, and for the last year and a half, 2 years, how long have you been really on the circuit doing presentations?
It's been about 4 or 5 years now, since I retired from the FBI in 2013.
Okay, so tell us a little timeline of when you were in the FBI, and really how you told me the story before, and it's really awesome. I feel it's an extremely interesting story on how you were given the paranormal files and how you took it on as your own.
I started in the FBI in 1988. I was in for many years, and I was given paranormal files as at the FBI as a punishment, because it was something that I investigated on my own, even when I was going through the academy, because the FBI had several cases that really didn't make sense. One of them was a couple of bank robbers named Maddox and Platt that FBI predicted. This happened back in, like 85, and they accurately predicted where they were coming to rob next. So they were waiting there with a task force, a lot of cops and FBI agents with heavy gear waiting for them. And sure enough, they showed up. There were a couple of hillbillies in hats and flannel shirts. No special gear, not just guns, a lot of guns. And they told them to stop, and they started shooting them. They shot them as soon as they got there, but they didn't fall down. They instead they marched forward, and they killed several police officers and FBI agents, like the Terminator movies. Okay, and then they circled around. They killed a bunch of guys. They circled around back to their old Chevy, got in the car to get away. One FBI agent popped up with a shotgun. He had already been shot, but he popped up in front of their car as they were getting away, and he was able to shoot them with the shotgun and blow out their the base of the spine, the base of the skull, blow that out, and finally killed the both of them. So he stopped them. But it was a big scandal in the FBI as to how come these guys weren't stopped. At the time in the 80s, a big thing was angel dust. Angel dust supposedly give people superhuman strength and stuff like that, and they're not aware of pain. So the toxology test came back on the guys. They had nothing in their system at all, not even alcohol, nothing. So then it became, how did these guys do what they did? How did they, and anyway, so that was a big question in the FBI for a long time. And then when I got to the academy, I actually checked into that. There were a couple of sheriff's deputies who had actually worked the case, and I started asking them questions about that. They told me when they did the search of the guys' apartments, they were under orders to find drugs, any kind of drugs, anything that could explain what they did, any substance. And all they found, they told me, all they found was a little altar to the Norse gods. They were Odinists, and they had done a little, incense burning to the god Loki before they went out on this bank robbery. That was the last thing they did. So I told those guys, I said, that's it. That's whatever. That's what gave them their superhuman abilities to do what they did. I said, that's it. That's what it is. And anyway, that got back to the person in charge of the class at the FBI, and I was given some heat over that. They told me, what do you think? You think you're a New York Times reporter? Is that what you think you're here for? And so anyway, when I went to my first office, they said, this guy likes supernatural cases. Let's give him some. And they did, and it was a punishment. So that was my very first experience with the paranormal in the FBI when I went in there.
So was it a punishment in that they felt that what you weren't gonna discover anything, that they were just giving you a desk job where you're just gonna sit there, push paper, and not really delve into anything? So what is the story on how you started delving into things? Were there any cases that you started discovering answers for?
Yes. Well, I mean, at the same time, I had to work terrorism cases as well. So that always was something dynamic and crazy and important to do. But the paranormal cases that I got was what you call control files. They're like cold cases that are made into administrative cases. And so I received all of those. And having those is seen as a burden because you have to kind of keep up on them, keep putting things in the file. But at the same time, nothing is expected to happen with them. And so I got all the cases on the UFO situation with the Guy Hotel memo, situations like the Memorandum of Importance, which was a case that had to do with an FBI special agent that had an informant. This case, people don't know about it, but he had an informant who was an alien visitor and who told him all the truth of what's going on with alien visitors and who they are and what they want. And that case has never really been fully explored, but it's monumental. And I talk about it in my book, The Para Investigators.
Right.
as well.
So does the FBI get paranormal files and shelf them and not give them any time, or do they actually receive them and investigate them and just maybe feel that it's not going to lead to anyway, but they give it, the time of day?
They do both. They will shelve some cases and not really do anything with them, but other cases are investigated out to some kind of physical conclusion. And if anybody wants to see those cases, they're very easy to find in the declassified dumping site on the internet at vault.fbi.gov. You go to that site, then you go to the tabs on the right where it says unexplained phenomena, and there's a whole section there. You click on that, and then that opens up UFO cases, extrasensory perception, which is a real section in there, cattle mutilations, and JFK assassination, and other things too that are unexplained phenomena. And you can open up, and if you hit on UFOs, it opens up a lot of groups of cases that we have investigated over the years that you'll find pretty amazing.
And that's is that a new thing that FBI did? Because I remember maybe 2-3 years ago is when somebody sent me the link to the FBI website. I went through it, and then the beginning of this year we had the CIA putting it online, even though it had already been declassified a decade or so before, right? But it wasn't available online. Was that the same thing with the FBI documents? Were they available for a long time, but they just didn't put them out?
Well, they started dumping out the declassified documents for some reason shortly after 9/11 in 2001. And all the intel agencies started doing that too. Today, the CIA has a site out there. It's called the Sitting Room. The FBI thing is called the Vault. It's the Vault. The NSA has a site too.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we have 22 agencies that have intel arms in them in the United States, and they all dump declassified documents out onto the net. It's so much material that it's almost like data flooding, where they kind of don't want you to find the important stuff, so they dump out millions of documents of garbage, so that only somebody like like me that's experiencing government and knows where BS is and knows where important stuff is can really show you what really matters.
Right. And that's you know Clifford Stone, right? And he was the guy on Roswell crash and then releasing documents, and he was a part of many different UFO crash retrieval sites. And when documents came out, he started going through them because he was in these programs and started looking at the code words that he knew were the code words because he was in them. And so when the CIA dumped, I don't know, tens of thousands, many documents out, he started searching by the code words, and all the things that he was a part of started popping up. So it's very interesting because it's hidden in plain sight. We can't figure it out unless we have an insider that was there. Most insiders don't even talk.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, the stuff is hidden in plain sight. That's a good way to put it. And this other document that I was talking about, a memorandum of importance that's out there, it's from 1946, I believe. Well, it's from 1947 when Roswell happened, and it's amazing. It's something that even in ufology has been ignored, while they pay attention to other nonsense like the Guy Hotel memo that really doesn't tell you very much. And these things, you don't know the significance of those things unless you have an insider who can tell you what was going on at the moment that that document was created. That's why it's so important to have.
Right. So the FBI, the CIA, the NSA all has all information out there, right? Hidden in plain sight. What kind of information does the NSA have? Do you know? Have you checked it
I
out?
don't know too much about the NSA, and I don't know if I would trust them even if I knew where their documents were. Same with the CIA as well. You know, I mean, these are organizations based on deception. You know, at least the FBI was based on a real mission to pursue criminals and terrorists, and they're based on court procedures. So they had to have some truthfulness in the stuff that they did and they put out there. So that's why I don't really trust.
Which
those.
is like NSA, CIA, military-industrial complex has no oversight. A lot of times, the FBI had oversight, and their Federal Bureau of Investigations that deal with things that are happening to regular people in their homes, all the way to big things. So they really did spend some time on it. Did you witness any type of cabal entity happening within the FBI, or was was there like some sort of cabalist agenda occurring, like people say with the CIA and the military-industrial complex?
Well, let me tell you this. There were times in the FBI when we were doing investigation, and sometimes I can't say exactly what investigations I'm talking about, but famous things that everybody knows about, where we were investigating stuff, and I'm talking about dozens and dozens of FBI agents working together to find a conclusion on something, and then suddenly we would just get the word that you can't go any further on this. None of you. You can't go any further on finding the solution to this matter. Just not at all. That's it. And we would ask, why? Who's telling us that we can't go any further on this? And we would get back the response, this comes from above the president's office.
Oh, interesting.
And we say, what the? And those of us who know the structure of the United States, we would say, what the hell does that mean? There is nothing above the president's office.
Right.
And it didn't matter. That would be the only answer we would get.
You wouldn't even get an answer of
Everything
who
would
was
stop.
above?
No.
Just someone.
No, that's it. And everything would stop. And everything that we were doing to find the truth on something would simply be shielded. It would just be, that's it, you're done.
Right. Has anyone from the FBI reached out to you since you've become public with all this information to put a stop on it?
I do have contact sometimes, but in an official capacity, no. Not in an official capacity, we don't have that.
Like season, then stop it right now or else.
Oh, for that? No. They don't care, because everything that I do, I label it paranormal.
Right.
And in government, as long as you're not giving away, what the president's doing on a Saturday night in the privacy of his home, they don't really care, because they figure paranormal is just fiction. That's how they see it. So they don't care what I'm doing. So I'm not getting any cease and desist.
Plus, would you say all of what you're coming out with has been disclosed by them, even though they aren't trying to publicize it and market it? Yes. They've disclosed it. So are there certain cases that you're not even allowed to talk about? Have they told you that?
Well,
or as long as you label it paranormal, it's okay.
Yeah, both are true. There are some cases that I just don't talk about simply because a lot of things have never been revealed about the cases, and they didn't come out in court cases. They didn't go to court, and so once something goes to court, it's all public. So there are some things I don't talk about, but other than that, there's a lot. Everything is pretty much hidden in plain sight, and a lot of the stuff that I have worked on, is already public, and I can talk about it.
So tell us about your books and kind of like a timeline from when you left the FBI and the information that you were coming up with and releasing, and how it's evolved into your latest book.
Sure. My first book was when I first left the FBI was The Para Investigators, which is just stories that people think they know, that is just basically stories of the paranormal in law enforcement. FBI agents, police officers, even security guards that were using their own paranormal abilities to save people's lives, because it happened a lot. That's what my first book was. My second book is
Interesting.
yeah.
That's amazing.
My second book, and I talked about this in this presentation, was The Extra Dimensionals, where I tried to bring out to people a lot of these, what, like you said, hidden in plain sight type cases that have come out before. People knew about it, but mainstream media and fake science came together to debunk these cases, to bury them, and to show that this stuff wasn't real. And so I talk about that in this. And my last book is the Clear Hearers. The Clear Hearers is about an ability that's been in my family for many years, for generations, about the ability to hear a clear voice of authority that comes to you in times of crisis and helps you, and sometimes can save your life. And it comes from Joan of Arc in the 14th century. That was supposedly she was the original clear hearer. And so that's what this book is about. It's about history of my family and historical figures who had that ability too.
You talk about your family in the book.
Yeah, a lot. A lot I do.
So would you say that's kind of a message that you're receiving, like a download
Yeah.
that you're receiving from source directly?
Yeah, it is. But it's also sometimes just a regular human voice that comes to you in your own voice. There's actually a show right now that uses material from the Clear Hearers. That is, it just started. It's called Manifest. It's a first episode that just came out last week, and it's on NBC. I think it's on NBC. You guys check it out. Manifest. And it's pretty amazing. They use material from this book.
Okay. Is there anyone right now in charge of the Paranormal Files, or was there someone in charge of the Paranormal Files before you, and then they just gave you some of them, and that was still happening? Or was it kind of like they were there and then they just handed them over to you because they were just sitting there? How did that work out?
I was the first subject matter expert that I know of.
Right.
I didn't know of anybody before me that was doing that sort of thing, but I'm sure that there was. But that was a previous generation in the FBI, and everything in the FBI doesn't function on squads or divisions, like people say, was there an X-Files division or something like that? And no, things like that function along the lines of individual subject matter experts. So one guy can become an expert in anything, like stolen art, and that can be his whole deal. He can become globally known expert in that. And there's another guy who's there's another guy who's an expert in stolen military medallions and awards.
And it becomes a full-time gig doing that?
Yeah, and it's a full-time thing. He does that, and he goes all over the world doing that.
Yeah.
And so that functions on individual things.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Talk a bit about compartmentalization within the three-letter agencies, right? So CIA, NSA, FBI, and then we can go into military too. But it seems like a lot of these agencies were investigating cases that were similar, sometimes the same cases, or in the same field. Was there any sort of cross-communication between these agencies?
Yeah, usually usually there can be several agencies working the same thing.
Okay.
Like, for instance, UFOs were very often investigated by Air Force Security, U.S. Air Force Security Department, and then FBI would come on in on it, and they would get a piece of that, and then the president or somebody would determine, okay, which agencies got it at some point.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's how it would work.
Okay, okay.
Or the Secretary of Defense. Sorry.
Okay. So this case will come through, right? And the president or secretary of defense, somebody higher up there, would actually assign it to
Yeah,
someone.
he would say, okay, no, you guys do it, not you guys.
So but are there cases that go directly to the three-letter agencies that ever bypass the hierarchy like that?
Bypass? No, because eventually the hierarchy would find out what was going on, and they would send notes back and say, okay, this should be with Air Force. Just everybody else back off. Just let them take care of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. So what about Michael Sala, right? Talks
yeah,
about
Dr.
the
Sala.
military-industrial complex,
Yeah.
and how he's also saying how and a lot of people are saying now how about the white hats are taking over the military-industrial complex, but some people say the president, when has approached the military-industrial complex and said, hey, I want to get this information about UFOs, Roswell, and they've said no.
Right.
So in your opinion, who is maybe not in charge, because I don't think it's a specific person, but how does that hierarchy work? Do you have any insight on that?
Like I can tell you, for example, the secret space program it's dominated, it's controlled by the elite powers in control, which are the bloodlines, the Illuminati bloodlines, the central banking dynasties, yes, who have been in control of our planet and are in control of the nations since time immemorial. And they're the ones who are in charge of that sort of thing. And right now, President Trump, for instance, sent them a message when he said, I'm going to have Space Force. I'm creating Space Force. Well, what he was doing was he was sending them a message that I'm coming for your secret space program, and I'm bringing an army with me.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing, and he's doing it. And they are very, very upset about that.
Right. Do you feel that he is going to be able to do this within his presidential term, that it's going to be coming out?
I think that's his intention, and I think that he is going to, his intention is he wants to do disclosure. Well, let me not say disclosure. He wants to do release of these alien technologies and things like that. And the way he's going to do it is he's going to say, it's Space Force. Space Force did it.
Yeah.
The military, we did it. We found it, and we did it, and we just discovered this. And that's how he's going to release the stuff.
Right.
Because he can't say, this is stuff that we've had for 50 years in the government.
upset about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Where all the money went.
Right. And that avoids all that upset talk about, the trillions of dollars that disappeared and all that. He'll just say, hey, Space Force did it.
Right.
Here it is. And that's how he's going to do it.
Do you think Tom DeLonge and his initiative is connected to Trump's, or it's two separate entities?
No, I think that is separate completely. And I don't really believe that the, what's it called, To the Stars Academy,
Yeah.
to me that really just looks like a psychological operation between the agencies like the CIA, the NSA, and the black hats in those organizations, and in a private, also in a joint operation with private industry as well, aerospace,
Yeah.
private industry.
Right.
That's what that looks like to me. It doesn't look like anything honest or real for disclosure.
Right. So let's talk about consciousness, right? I am very much into validating, even though I have this belief of consciousness and I feel it within me. I love the confirmations of consciousness. And when documents get released where CIA is talking about remote viewing Mars a billion years ago and using your consciousness to do it, and the FBI is talking about extrasensory, it's making me realize that the government and these agencies that are part of the hierarchical structure are also involved in consciousness. What is your take on the FBI and what you had figured out in regards to consciousness while you were in the FBI?
Well, I've seen some experimental investigations go forward with things of that sort, where they were attempting to join consciousness to computer software operations that were going forward, and sometimes they had success, sometimes they didn't. Probably the CIA has a lot more of that sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
But for some reason, in the United States, we're very restricted about that sort of thing, whereas other nations are not. I think China and Russia have a lot more advancement in those areas than we do. That's how I see.
Were you into the paranormal before you got the paranormal files?
Yeah, very much so.
So it was synchronistic that you received them, right?
Yeah, it was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I had my paranormal experiences even as a child,
Yeah.
like the one I talked about in my presentation, when I had my observation experiences and then my contact experiences with alien visitors as well. So that was from even as a child. Yeah.
Amazing. What do you feel is going to happen? Do you feel that within our lifetimes we're going to experience a full disclosure world?
I think we're going to within a very short time from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, judging from everything that's going on and the phenomena and how much the phenomena is increasing,
Yeah.
even as we sit here.
Exponentially.
Exactly. I think that it's a definite that within a very short time we will have full disclosure, and it's not going to be to the White House lawn or the United Nations. I think it's going to be to each one of us directly,
Yeah.
because they have the technology to contact us directly. They're not like us where they have to go to the Capitol building or something and go say,
Announce themselves.
yeah, and announce themselves and say, hey, we want to talk to the president. That's what we would do as humans. They're not going to do that.
Right.
They have a better ability than that.
Right, and that's one of the number one things I hear from people who aren't in know about this is like, well, why don't they just land on the White House lawn, right? It's so cliche at this point, I'm just getting annoyed of hearing it. But the fact is, why would any advanced civilization that has a betterment of humanity go to the White House lawn where, for the most part, these elite across the centuries have just been trying to destroy humanity and what we're doing, right? So it's going to happen on a grassroots level. You know, Daryl Anka channels Bashar? Do you know him at all?
Oh, yeah,
So
Bashar.
he said that first contact, everyone's going to be channeling, right? And your third book is that it's not per se channeling like continuously, but the message that you're receiving. So I feel that first contact is what's a better way to have first contact than just showing up and freaking everybody out on the planet? Is to communicate with them, have them work on themselves, self-empowerment, eating better, clearing up the energy fields, and then receiving the messages, and then everybody collectively getting ready for it, and then boom, we have disclosure world. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I think that's what we're looking at. I think we're looking at direct contact to each of us, like the movie, like the X-Men movies where they have the machine that identifies all the mutants, lights them up. I see us lighting up in some near time in the future where they're going to be going out to each one of us directly. And this they don't recognize the political system, I don't think. I don't think they should.
Yeah. And to add to that, from my research, a lot of different civilizations, they don't have a hierarchy, they have facilitators. So like, for example, Sirius, the Syrian the Council of Nine, right? They're the ones that control all the energy. They are like the senators of Sirius, but they facilitate. They don't ever control or have power. So we don't really need this power structure. And then there's places such as a city in Mexico where they have no government, and they're the most crime-free place in the whole entire Mexico. So it's like we've been convinced that we need this other power. But ultimately, when we all come together, what do we want? We want love, shelter, food, right? We just want to love and be loved. And when we hate, it's because we have lack of love, right? And we've been told by those from the top, these ancient ones, that we live in a world of lack. But ultimately, we live in abundance, and I feel that's what we're getting, right?
Yes.
And people like yourself and everybody here are really assisting us into shifting into this reality that we know we're abundant, right? So I appreciate everything you're doing, brother. I love you so much. I'm just blessed to have you here, man.
Thanks.
And keep doing what you're doing, and just know you have all of our support always. Okay?
Thanks so much, Neil.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. I appreciate this event and everything that you've done here today. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.